Hey guys, welcome to 2-Minute Terms Day. I'm Hannah, and in these videos I teach you some ceramics terms, and I'm still working on the whole in 2 minutes part. Recently, I overheard someone in the studio say, I'd rather be called a potter than a ceramicist. And I thought, what an interesting topic. So today we're talking about pottery and potter versus ceramics and ceramicist. Pottery and ceramics are words that feel like synonyms, and they often get used interchangeably. In fact, if you signed up for a class to make pottery, it was probably called ceramics. But you knew you'd be making pottery, and you'd be disappointed if you showed up and were making things like spark plugs. So let's define these terms and talk about their differences. Let's start with pottery. By the strictest definition of the word, pottery refers to vessels or containers made out of clay hardened by heat. But the way we use words can change over time. So for example, here in America, the place where you go to make pottery is usually called a studio, but in the UK, it can be called a pottery. So you can go to the pottery to make pottery. Now, in that strict definition, you probably noticed that I specified vessels and containers, functional ware, which are called pots. Technically speaking, the definition of pots only includes vessels, things like mugs, plates, and vases. But then what does that make sculptures and non-functional pieces? Strictly speaking, they're ceramic sculptures, but that's the strict definition. The strict definition is used more for academic settings, things where we need to be more specific. But we know that in casual conversation, words can be used a little bit differently. So when I tell you I make pottery, or I show you pictures of my pottery, to me, that includes my sculpture. And functional pieces that have so much sculpture added to them, they're not really functional anymore. And I think that blurred line, that modification of functional pottery until it's sculptural, is part of why the word pottery has expanded to include non-functional ware. When you look further back in history, it's really easy to define ceramic objects as either pottery or sculpture. But over time, artists have done what they do best. They get creative, they combine things in new ways, so that we have to either invent new words or expand our definitions. So that's why a more open definition of pottery includes pots and other objects made out of clay and hardened by heat. But now you've heard me use the word ceramics a couple times while defining pottery, so let's define ceramics. Ceramics are all materials or items made out of materials which are inorganic and corrosion resistant and can be shaped and then heated to a high temperature to make them permanent. So clay is a type of ceramic, which means pots are also ceramics because they're made out of clay. Ceramics are different from metal and glass, which are also inorganic, sometimes corrosion resistant, but are not permanently changed by high heat. So you can recycle or reshape metal and glass by heating it to a high temperature again. But ceramics undergo a permanent change when heated to a high temperature. Looking through the lens of pottery, we know that you can take clay and shape it, and then you can heat it to a high temperature in a firing, and that makes the form permanent. Reheating it won't change that. You can break it, but you can't reshape it. Additionally, ceramics are hard but brittle, so they're strong to pressure but weak to shearing and tension. That hardness combined with corrosion resistance and higher heat resistance makes ceramics a unique, perfect solution in a variety of applications. There's probably more ceramics in your life than you realize. Things like bricks on a house, spark plugs in a car or other engines, and dental implants like bridges and crowns. But one of the craziest applications I know of is the use of ceramic tiles to insulate space shuttles to protect them from the extreme heat of exiting the Earth's atmosphere. It's amazing how versatile ceramics are, and I hope you have a better picture of how varied and different ceramics can be from each other. They're not all clay. Clay is just one type of ceramic material. So understanding the difference between ceramics and pottery should make it easier for us to understand the difference between ceramicist and potter. You would think. Except these two words are actually synonyms. You can use them completely interchangeably. Unless you want to be pedantic. So let's be pedantic. Just like pottery and ceramics, all potters are ceramicists, but not all ceramicists are potters. However, if you work in a field where you're making ceramic objects that are not pots, things like dental implants, bricks, tiles for the space shuttle, your title is probably not ceramicist. It's probably something that includes technician or engineer in it. So that leads us back to this. If you think of yourself as a ceramicist or your job title is ceramicist, you're probably a potter. But let's get even more pedantic. If you want to use the strictest definition of pottery, then a potter is a person who makes pots, vessels, functional ware, not sculptures, which means a person who makes clay sculptures and not functional ware is a ceramicist. I make both, so technically I'm always a ceramicist, but maybe I'm only a potter when I'm making dinnerware. Or I'm a potter who also makes ceramic sculptures. But being pedantic is only fun for so long. So I'm a potter. I like the way it sounds better. It's shorter, it sounds a little bit friendlier, and Arkansas potter sounds so much better than Arkansas ceramicist. Too many sisses. But I also taught ceramics classes because in an academic setting, I wanted to make sure the title of my class was open enough to include both pottery and ceramic sculpture. That's it for today. Now that you know the difference between ceramics and pottery, you can choose how pedantic you want to be. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility. So, love your neighbor. I'll see you next time.